Hi, can you explain the difference between no one will ever do or say anything to you that isn't a direct reflection of how they feel about themselves in a moment versus that you don't invite them to do?
So in my book, I heard this quote many years ago, and I found it to be true. In other words, people project what is inside of them onto other people. Case in point, we talk about politics a lot on Thursdays in the live stream, and whenever somebody is trying to label somebody else, like especially when they're going, they're the fascists, they're the Nazis. Well, they're projecting. They're the ones that are actually behaving as the fascists and the Nazis because, as Mussolini said, and he was the creator and the founder of fascism, he said fascism is the perfect merger of state and corporate interests. What that means is the big corporations and the politicians are working together to basically run the society, just like the World Economic Forum basically is. They bought off all these politicians. You look at every single prime minister of the UK in recent memory. Same thing with Canada, beta male Trudeau. Um, all of them are, as Klaus Schwab liked to brag, young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. That is the perfect merger of state and corporate interests. And the way those guys think is that since they're the masters of the universe, they should basically be running society. And that's the way they act, the great reset. And so when you look at the people on the left that are constantly demonizing everybody on the right and saying everybody on the right's a bunch of fascists, they're Hitler. Well, if you look at how they behaved, like some of the clips that we were going through, all the stuff that Joe Biden was accusing Trump of, they were actually doing. Joe Biden was the one that was doing dirty deals because he was a dirty politician. He's been dirty his whole life. Everybody, that's why they called him Greasy Joe Biden's always been his fucking nickname because he was always a slime ball. He ran for president 5 different times. First was in the 70s. He talked about how he was like number one in his class. And it turned out, because the media actually back then would do research and went and researched and found out he was actually last in the class. And so when that found out and it came to light, he resigned from his campaign in disgrace. But obviously that didn't deter him. And over the decades, the media just doesn't do any reporting. Everybody forgot about all those clips and all of his, sad apologies for him withdrawing his candidacy because he got caught in yet another fucking lie. And even we were playing the video yesterday of Jake Tapper going, well, Trump was right about all that stuff. Everything that Biden said he didn't do during the presidential debates, he actually did do. So the quote, no one will ever do or say anything to you that isn't a direct reflection of how they feel about themselves in a moment. So everything somebody's doing and saying is typically projecting what's inside, especially when they're trying to blame somebody else or label somebody else. They're basically, again, the people that are doing all the accusation of fascism, they're the ones that are actually behaving like the fascists because you look at the stuff with the CDC, and I got a clip here, the supposed original study that basically said that there's no link between autisms and vaccines was done by a former doctor at the CDC who basically got paid off. He was willing to bend over and take the money and fudge the studies, and yet he's one of the bigwigs at the CDC because the pharmaceutical industry paid him off. Well, he embezzled something like $1 million and then skipped town, and they've been looking for him for years, and they just arrested his ass in Germany recently. I think he took like 900 something thousand, embezzled it basically. He's just a fucking criminal. And so everything that he supposedly was an expert on, now we know he was paid off. Who's that? Is that one of the dogs? So, hey, stop it. So, you got to understand that it's like in any interaction, if somebody's accusing you of something or trying to label you as something, or a woman's going, you're gaslighting me, you're doing this, you're doing that, and you're lying to me. I know you're cheating. That's, because I've discussed that a lot, especially when I've done videos about liars and cheaters, is that they're projecting what's inside. And when you have a woman that you're dating and she's constantly accusing you of lying, of cheating, of doing things you shouldn't do, she's projecting. In other words, she's the one that's really doing things that she should not be doing. And so you pay attention to that. And then no one will ever do or say anything to you that you don't invite them to do. Is that whatever you tolerate, you're inviting more of. In other words, you don't set and enforce healthy boundaries, then other people think you're soft and you're weak and they can get away with it and they'll do more of it. Somebody that always forgives the liar and the cheater and they keep getting cheated on, well, they're inviting it because they keep enabling the behavior by putting up with it. So that's basically the difference in those two statements. It's just a reflection of what human nature is really like. And so when someone's being really nasty to you or accusing you of something that you know you didn't do, your spidey sense should be going, oh, they're projecting what's inside of them. That's what people do. People that run around, especially people on the left, calling for the murder of conservatives and other people, othering other people, what they're really doing is projecting their death wish, their self-hate and their self-loathing, their lack of desire to live. They're projecting that on other people in society in a way that they hope to absolve themselves from those icky thoughts. If they can throw that on somebody else, then they feel better about themselves and their life choices. So you should always pay attention to that. And if someone's abusing you, somebody's lying to you, somebody's cheating on you, and you forgive those things and you hope they're going to change, and then they don't, and then yet you stick around, you're enabling their behavior. You're inviting them to continue to do it. Maybe when you were dating, you kept dating that person despite the fact that they told you that every single one of their relationships ended in lying and cheating. And then you date them thinking that you're going to be Mr. White Knight and you're going to save them from their shitty lives. And all you end up doing is inviting more of that. So you have to pay attention. Character's destiny. Look at what people do, not what they say.